live in interesting times. Today's stories. Ministers agree to a new Mediterranean migrant system. Youth petitioners submit a legal complaint about climate change. French President Macron urges Europe to do more to fight climate change. Yemenis upcycle shot-up buses to ease water shortage for students. Harry and Meghan praise the fight for women's rights in South Africa. A new report says the last 5 years are set to be the hottest on record. A UN expert says, quote, climate impacts are hitting harder and sooner. President Trump pledges $25 million to protect religious freedom. Plus, E25 Records launches the Guerrero soundtrack and holds a watch party in Pasadena. This is Eagle News, broadcasting from Washington, D.C., bringing you stories from around the globe, and I am Jennifer Polintan. Four European Union countries on Monday agreed to a new temporary system to automatically distribute migrants arriving in Italy and Malta from across the Mediterranean, which will be discussed at the full European Union next month. The deal to determine which countries will welcome migrants rescued in the central Mediterranean hopes to end the long, drawn-out negotiations that have seen vulnerable asylum seekers, including babies, stranded at sea, sometimes for weeks.
If everybody puts himself in the shoe of the other minister, we will be able to reach an agreement. Actually, that's what we did, and it is why there is an agreement of a common paper that will be presented to the Councils of Ministers of Home Affairs on the 8th of October.
Critics have long argued that the regulation places an unfair burden on the Mediterranean frontier countries such as Italy, Malta, Greece, and Spain. Italy's new pro-European Union government has moved quickly to turn the page on the hardline anti-migrant policies pursued by former far-right Interior Minister Matteo Salvini, who closed the ports to those rescued. A successful European migrant agreement would be a blow to Salvini, showing that cooperation gets better results than confrontation. French Interior Minister Christophe Castaner said that details of the plan would not immediately be made public. Castaner said, quote, "The document won't be released immediately because we prefer to share it with other member states first." After a meeting last week, Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte and French President Emmanuel Macron both called for a reform of Europe's, quote, ineffective policy. Countries that did not volunteer to take migrants should face financial penalties, they argued. European Migration Commissioner Dimitri Avramopoulos said, quote, "Europe has to be better prepared and stand with frontline countries like Italy, Greece, Malta, Spain, and Cyprus."
I now call on all member states to join us in our work to establish a more predictable solidarity mechanism and to participate in solidarity efforts.
Oxfam hailed the tentative agreement as, quote, "a positive step to share responsibility between European countries and the first moment of hope for a more humane system since European migration policies deteriorated in 2015.
Ritengo che è molto importante quello che oggi è avvenuto, in quanto è il primo atto, è un'intesa, un primo passo concreto per un approccio di vera azione comune europea. Io ho trovato un clima davvero positivo perché la politica migratoria è una politica che va fatta insieme agli altri Stati. Devo dire che noi abbiamo sempre negli anni passati detto che chi arriva a Malta, chi arriva in Italia, arriva in Europa.
Ich bin gedämpft optimistisch hier angekommen. und muss sagen, dass ich jetzt mit dem Ergebnis hochzufrieden bin. Wir haben Regelungen gefunden für einen temporären Notfallmechanismus, Regelungen, die Italien und Malta helfen.
Young people from around the world submitted a groundbreaking legal complaint about climate change with the United Nations Committee on the Rights of the Child.
I have little faith in our world leaders to do anything on the climate crisis. So that is why all of us students are up here today and filing this complaint.
A visibly angry Greta Thunberg berated world leaders at a UN climate summit on Monday, accusing them of betraying her generation by failing to tackle greenhouse gas emissions and asking, quote, "How dare you?" The impassioned speech set the tone for the meeting called by UN Chief Antonio Guterres to reinvigorate the faltering Paris Agreement, which 66 countries have responded to with vows to achieve carbon neutrality by 2050.
It was 30 years ago that you signed the Convention of the Rights of the Child, and world leaders have failed to keep what they promised. They promised to protect our rights, and they have not done that. So, yeah. I think what we want to send is, the message we want to send is to say that we have had enough. And anyone else wants to answer that question? I can't speak on behalf of everyone. Of course it's a point, because everything matters, everything we do matters, and this is a huge opportunity for world leaders to actually prove that they are united behind the science and that they are going to take real action. I just hope something good will come out of it. I hope it will have a good outcome, but we also have to prepare ourselves for the worst and continue even though if it has a bad outcome.
It comes as mankind is releasing more emissions into the atmosphere than at any point in history, triggering global weather hazards from heat waves to intense hurricanes to raging wildfires and rapidly acidifying oceans. Yet the gap between carbon reduction targets demanded by scientists to avert catastrophe and action thus far taken is only widening. In a surprising turn of events, President Donald Trump made a brief, unscheduled appearance on Monday at the UN Climate Summit, which he had been expected to skip entirely. Trump, who has repeatedly expressed doubt about the overwhelming scientific consensus on man-made causes of global warming, spent a few minutes in the hall of the General Assembly, where he applauded Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's speech and then left. Earlier, opening the summit, Secretary General Antonio Guterres said, quote, "The climate emergency is a race we are losing, but it is a race we can win." French President Emmanuel Macron invited his counterparts from Chile, Colombia, and Bolivia to a meeting where $500 million in extra funds were pledged by the World Bank, Inter-American Development Bank, and a nonprofit Conservation International to protect the world's rainforests. French President Emmanuel Macron says Europe can do more to address climate change, urging European countries to take action in order to achieve a decrease of emissions by 55% by 2030 during a speech at the UN Climate Summit.
L'Europe doit faire plus. Et donc, dès 2020, l'Europe doit prendre des décisions très claires pour pouvoir exaucer les vœux de la nouvelle présidente, Ursula von der Leyen, d'aller vers des réductions accrues de nos émissions à horizon 2030. Ce fameux moins 55% en 2030. Et nous devons bâtir, au moins au niveau européen, puisque c'est à ce niveau-là, en tant que Français, que je vous parle et qu'on a une action utile, un agenda commercial qui vise le zéro carbone et le zéro déforestation importée. C'est indispensable. La France mettra 1,5 milliard d'euros dans le fonds, à 80% sous forme de dons. La Norvège a elle aussi doublé sa contribution. Hier, le Danemark, la Suède se sont joints aux pays qui doublent leur contribution. Les Pays-Bas l'ont augmenté. Nous sommes, au moment où je vous parle, à 7 milliards de dollars. La cible est d'atteindre 10 milliards de dollars pour aussi compenser le retrait américain. Il y aura peut-être une bonne nouvelle américaine, je l'espère, durant cette Assemblée générale. Premièrement, moi je me félicite aujourd'hui qu'on ait eu la bonne nouvelle de la ratification de l'accord de Paris par la Russie. Formidable nouvelle. Ce n'était pas attendu il y a quelques mois, ça montre que les choses progressent. Vous pouvez les applaudir. Deuxième chose, si on veut agir et aller fort, il faut aller vers la neutralité carbone 2050. On a bâti cette coalition qui ne cesse de grandir. On a besoin de nos jeunesses dans nos pays pour nous dire d'aller plus vite. On a besoin de cette jeunesse pour nous aider à changer les choses, à réparer, à agir, à mettre plus de pression sur celles et ceux qui ne veulent pas bouger, État, financeurs.
Once a bus wrecked with peppered bullet holes, the pristine white water tanker parked in front of a Yemen university now delivers water to students in the war-torn and cholera-hit south.
قصينا الباص بدينا قصينه وقمنا بالتعديل للباص وركبنا له الماكينه والسبيت والدفريجان كله بريكات جديد كل شيء جديد داخله وصلحنا ايضا الخزان حق الماء.
الفكرة جاءت لنا بالبداية نظرا هنا شحات المياه في محافظة تعز أولا تمام، وعدم وجود في الجامعة ويتات نهائيا، وما نعانيه نحن بالجامعة بشكل عام كان وخاصة سكن الطالبات بتوفير المياه. فكانت الفكرة هنا أن نحن نوجد ويد للجامعة ولدينا باصات مدمرة بشكل كبير.
Britain's Prince Harry and his wife Meghan praised the work done to promote female empowerment in South Africa as they started their first official family visit in the coastal city of Cape Town. The royal couple visited a self-defense workshop for young girls held by the NGO Justice Desk. Prince Harry on Monday urged South African men to turn their back on toxic masculinity as his wife Meghan applauded girls for standing up for what's right as the British royal couple launched their first official tour since becoming parents in May. The pair joined campaigners in Cape Town's fighting South Africa's stratospheric rates of violence against women on the first stage of the 10-day swing through southern Africa.
Touching on what your president said last week, no man is born to cause harm to women. This is learned behavior and a cycle that needs to be broken. But change is coming. Now is the time to come together as a community, and we applaud those of you who are leading the way for South Africa's ongoing transformation.
South Africa is one of the world's most dangerous places, particularly for women. According to official figures, at least 137 sexual offenses are committed per day. In August alone, more than 30 women were killed by their spouses. President Cyril Ramaphosa has vowed to crack down on perpetrators after femicide protests flared across the country this month. Meghan, a mixed-race American who has been advocating women's rights long before marrying Harry in 2017, congratulated girls standing up for what's right in the face of adversity.
That my husband and I have been closely following what you've been experiencing here as best as we can from afar. But now that we're with you, we're eager to learn and see firsthand the work that you're doing, the vital work that you're doing, because I know that when women are empowered, the entire community flourishes.
Demonstrations in South Africa have been mounting over the rising toll of murders, rapes, and abuse of women and girls, and the sense of impunity that surrounds it. The couple later toured District 6 Museum, a memorial to the expulsion of some 60,000 non-white residents from the city center during apartheid. Up next, a new report says the last 5 years are set to be the hottest on record. A UN expert says, quote, climate impacts are hitting harder and sooner. President Trump pledges $25 million to protect religious freedom. Eagle News will be right back. Stay with us. The The World Meteorological Organization, or the WMO, presents a new report on climate change that states that temperatures over 2015 and 2019 are on track to be the hottest ever, 1.1 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial period. The report says concrete action needs to be developed urgently to halt global warming and the worst effects of climate change.
The impacts of climate change are occurring faster and to a greater degree than what you would think if you read the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change reports. And that's probably because the IPCC reports are a consensus of hundreds of scientists' views. So in a way, it's a kind of a lowest common denominator set of points of agreement about the state of the science. The current nationally determined contributions submitted by the parties to the Paris Agreement would have to be 3 times as ambitious as they currently are to meet the 2-degree target and 5 times as ambitious as they currently are to meet the 1.5-degree target. And that assumes, of course, that these pledges are actually implemented.
A new UN report published Sunday said the world is failing badly behind in the race to avert climate disaster because of runaway warming, with the 5-year period ending in 2019 set to be the hottest ever. It comes ahead of a major UN climate summit on Monday, attended by more than 60 world leaders, such as Secretary General Antonio Guterres, pushes for countries to increase their greenhouse gas reduction targets. According to its authors, the Science Advisory Group to the summit, the report, quote, highlights the urgent need for the development of concrete actions that halt global warming and the worst effects of climate change. According to the report compiled by the World Meteorological Organization, the average global temperature between 2015 and 2019 is on track to be the hottest of any 5-year period on record. It is said the period, quote, is currently estimated to be 1.1 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial 1850 to 1900 times and 0.2 degrees Celsius warmer than 2011 to 2015. The past 4 years were already the hottest since record-keeping began in 1850. Guterres said last week the world was, quote, losing the race on climate change, and the latest report spells out the extent to which the gap between what is required and what is happening is widening. Rather than failing, carbon dioxide grew 2% in 2018, reaching a record high of 37 billion tons. More importantly, there is also no sign yet of reaching what is known as peak emissions, the point at which levels will start to fall, though these are not growing at the same rate as the global economy. The 2015 Paris Agreement saw countries lay out national targets to reduce their emissions in order to limit long-term temperature rise by under 2 degrees Celsius, or ideally 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. These are benchmarks that will limit in important ways the impact of warming on world weather systems. But even if all countries meet the goals they set themselves, the report found the world will warm by 2.9 degrees Celsius to 3.4 degrees Celsius. The current levels of ambition would need to be tripled to meet the 2 degrees Celsius goal and increased 5-fold to meet the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal, technically still possible. During a press conference at the UN, outgoing Vice Chancellor of the Terry School of Advanced Studies in India, Lina Shrivastava, said, quote, we are at risk of crossing several critical tipping points. Shrivastava said, quote, climate impacts are hitting harder and sooner. The press conference followed the release of a new report, which says the world is falling badly behind in the race to avert climate disaster.
And we have been breaking records in temperatures. Last July was the warmest single month since 1850, and last June was the warmest June that we have observed since 1850 again. And so far we have seen 1.1 degree warming.
We are at risk of crossing several critical tipping points in the planetary systems. And I think there's also in the science community a greater recognition of the fact that climate impacts are hitting harder and sooner than what climate assessments had estimated almost a decade ago.
The situation is quite clear. I mean, the energy sector, especially the power sector, needs to decarbonize. You need to look at transport. You need to look at land-based solutions in agriculture and forestry. And all of it is basically known. There's not a need to wait for new inventions or anything like that. It's more a question about what it takes to get the political will to move ahead.
And one take-home message is that the global emissions of carbon dioxide for 2018 appear to have gone up about 2.1%. So it's the largest increase we've seen in more than 5 years. And 2019 is on track to rise further as the global economy grows. So there's something arbitrary to me about 1.5 and 2. Every tenth of a degree matters, as Thelma has just said. So, yes, we've probably missed the boat for 1.5. We could come back to it with negative emissions, but there's nothing arbitrary about it.
Meanwhile, in New York, U.S. President Donald Trump pledged an additional $25 million to protect religious freedom around the world during a conference on religious freedom at the United Nations General Assembly. Trump also announced the U.S. is forming a coalition of business leaders to protect religious freedom in the workplace and encourages other countries to increase punishment for crimes against religious communities.
We're also urging every nation to increase the prosecution and punishment of crimes against religious communities. There can be no greater crime than that. Today, the Trump administration will dedicate an additional $25 million to protect religious freedom and religious sites and relics. The United States is forming a coalition of U.S. businesses for the protection of religious freedom. This is the first time this has been done. This initiative will encourage the private sector to protect people of all faiths in the workplace.
Coming up, E25 Records launches the Guerrero soundtrack and holds a watch party in Pasadena, California. Stay with us. Eagle News will be right back. Welcome back. You are watching Eagle News, and I'm Jennifer Polentan. E25 Records launched the soundtrack of multi-awarded movie Guerrero by EBC Films. At a watch party in LA, our Eagle News team there caught up with some E25 artists based in the United States. Eva Basalahe with the details.
Welcome you all to the Guerrero Soundtrack Music Launch Party.
E25 Records announced its release of the movie soundtrack for award-winning film Guerrero. Musicgoers in the U.S. connected live with E25 in the Philippines.
Entertainment at its finest.
And on a rooftop setting in Pasadena, California, celebrated with the soundtrack launch party. Guests were treated to food, boba drinks, candy, and snap pics with some pretty breathtaking views.
I thought the launch event was pretty cool. This is like one of the few launch events that I've been to, and the performances that happened like tonight, they're honestly fantastic.
The whole program tonight was really nice. It was really nice to see everyone come out to come support the launching of the soundtrack. And events like this make me want to see more of the films from EBC.
I think E25 has a big future ahead of them. I'm looking forward to more launch parties. I'll go ahead and support that.
Live performances from Sarah Petty, and Musée added to the Philippine lineup of performers.
Pursue your passion, whether it's music or anything. Put your mind to it. I was balancing 3 jobs. I quit one of my jobs just so I could have more time throughout the week just to focus on music, build my craft, whether it's making beats or even just writing and singing, and then just putting out content towards E25 Records, or even just on social media, because that's just how passionate I am about music. Even just after performing, I love the energy of everybody here.
It's a momentous occasion, so everybody's like, you know, very happy. Everybody's like excited to see each other, and I even think personally that you know, everybody's excited for what else is going to happen in the future too. Keep your eyes and ears open. Don't blink too fast because you might miss what's coming next. So yeah.
The Guerrero movie soundtrack is now available on Spotify, Google Play, iTunes, and other online stores. In Pasadena, California, Eva Basayahe, Eagle News. I'm 1 with 25.
Thanks, Eva. That is today's Eagle News. Join us again for tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.net and eaglenewslive.com. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenews and on Facebook at facebook.com/eaglenews. Thank you for watching. I am Jennifer Politan, and I am 1 with 25.